One weekend, Xiao Fei was on duty at the police station when he heard Tang Dang playing in the yard and shouting, "Aunt Chi." Xiao Fei ignored her. Ever since Xiao Tsong returned, he had stopped taking Tang Dang to Aunt Chi's house. Tang Dang wasn't happy about it for a long time. She would always make up stories, pretending she'd seen Aunt Chi coming to play with her. Hearing a noise at the entrance, Xiao Fei looked up. There stood Aunt Chi, holding Tang Tang's hand and smiling kindly at him. After handing Tang Dang over to another officer on duty, Xiao Fei took Aunt Chi to the largest shopping mall in town. Watching Aunt Chi linger hesitantly outside the women's clothing store, Xiao Fei picked out a blouse and a skirt, asking the sales assistant to wrap them up. No, let me pay for it. Aunt Chi pulled out a few crumpled bills from her pocket. Xiao Fei stopped her.
What?
Can I buy her a birthday gift if it's Xiao Tsong's birthday? Aunt Chi didn't argue further. She took the bag the sales assistant handed her, her rough fingers slowly tracing over it. Time had flown by. It had been 14 years since Aunt Chi brought that little life into the world with her own hands. Aunt Chi had grown older, weathered like a stone worn by the elements. Xiao Tsong had grown up too, transforming from a delicate little girl into a teenager who was hard to understand, like a puzzle. After buying the clothes, Xiao Fei ordered a birthday cake and bought a big bag of essentials, like sanitary pads and face wash. Knowing Aunt Chi had little money, he insisted on paying. When he put Aunt Chi on the bus back to her village, he later found a few crumpled bills in his pocket. That old lady, Xiao Fei muttered, shaking his head with a smile. He'd wanted to take Aunt Chi to the hospital for a checkup, but she insisted on heading home quickly, saying she was worried about leaving Xiao Tsong alone. On his way back to the station, Xiao Fei spotted Xiao Tsong and a group of young men smoking together in front of an internet cafe. What are you doing here? Your grandma thought you were at home. Xiao Fei approached, but Xiao Tsong rolled her eyes and the young men whistled mockingly. As Xiao Fei flashed his badge, the group scattered in all directions. Go home now. Your grandma's already back. Don't make her worry about you. He hailed a taxi and told the driver the address. Wow, that old lady sure moves fast. Xiao Tsong tossed her cigarette and got in. When Xiao Fei tried to pay the driver, Xiao Tsong stopped him, patting her pocket. Money's the one thing I do have. He shut the car door for her. Your grandma doesn't have much, but she has you. Crazy. Xiao Tsong drove off in the taxi. Xiao Tsong's mother, Lu Wen, was from a neighboring province, and Xiao Tsong's real name was Lu Nianen. Although Lu Wen's record showed she was married, Xiao Tsong had taken her mother's last name. Whenever Xiao Fei mentioned Xiao Tsong's situation, Aunt Chi would always fall silent. Xiao Tsong had been with Aunt Chi for more than half a year, and she'd caused no end of trouble. She often stole money from Aunt Chi and ran off to town to play in internet cafes, mingling with unemployed youth. Twice, she'd ended up at the police station for fighting. She even got into a brawl in the station's yard, baring her teeth like a wild little beast. Finding Lu Wen wasn't too hard. They met at a cafe near her office, where Xiao Fei briefly outlined Xiao Tsong's recent troubles. Children should live with their parents. After all, you're her legal guardian. Lu Wen stayed silent, fingers wrapped around her coffee cup, her ring finger adorned with an enormous diamond impossible to miss. She looked well-maintained, her delicate figure like a wilting flower, evoking sympathy in anyone who saw her. Aunt Chi is elderly and not in good health. She's on welfare, and living with her means your daughter isn't getting the life or education she deserves. I can provide the money. This isn't about money. Xiao Fei felt a pang of irritation. Was this woman genuinely clueless or just pretending? Her life was clearly comfortable, yet she'd sent her own daughter to the countryside, leaving her to fend for herself. Just then, a BMW pulled up on the roadside. Lu Wen glanced outside, then said, I can't. Really, when it comes to that child, I just can't. After leaving Xiao Tsong with Aunt Chi, Lu Wen's family concealed the fact that she had a child out of wedlock, telling everyone that she was severely ill and needed rest. Lu Wen's father was the principal of a prestigious high school, and Lu Wen herself was beautiful. Many suitors approached, but she refused them all. "Are you still hung up on that scoundrel?" her father demanded. "Let me tell you, as long as I'm alive, I will never allow you two to be together." Lu Wen knew her feelings were conflicted. She both loved and resented the man who'd abandoned her. Even knowing he was unreliable, she just couldn't let him go. One day, Lu Wen was dragged to a karaoke bar by her friends, and on her way to the restroom, she unexpectedly ran into her ex-boyfriend. It felt like a dream. I was completely stunned. Lu Wen stared blankly at Xiaofa. The person I hated so much suddenly appeared right in front of me, and he even casually greeted me. She continued, "Long time no see. How have you been?" He asked with a smile. I wanted to keep a straight face, to curse him, to hit him. How could I be fine? After everything he did to me, how could I be okay? But I couldn't say anything. I just looked at him and cried. He pulled me into his arms, comforting me like we were still in love. After that day, I somehow ended up back with him. When he found out I had a daughter, he proposed marriage, saying we could bring her to live with us. "You agreed?" Xiaofa asked knowingly. Lu Wen nodded. Though her father was against it, deep down he hoped she and his granddaughter could have a complete family. As much as he didn't like his son-in-law, he knew he was the child's biological father. So, when Xiaotsong turned 3, Lu Wen gathered the courage to ask Auntie Qi for her child back. To her surprise, Auntie Qi handed her over without a struggle. I thought life was back on track. My father found him a decent job, something easy with good benefits. I stayed home to take care of our daughter. At first, life was bearable. The way Lu Wen referred to him made Xiaofa hesitate. She quickly realized it was Xiaotsong's father. It seemed that, to Lu Wen, this man was hardly worth mentioning, not even by name. One thing I've been curious about, how did Xiaotsong get that scar on her face? Xiaofa finally asked, noticing the instant pain in Lu Wen's eyes. About a year into our marriage, he went back to his old ways. Drinking, partying, and hanging out with other women, she said. We fought constantly, broke anything that could be broken. The summer Xiaotsong turned 7, he came home drunk, smashing things in the living room. He cursed me, cursed my father, saying we all looked down on him, thought of him as worthless, as trash. I remember thinking, what's the point of this life? I might as well die. But if I was going down, I wanted to take him with me. I locked the door and threw the key out the window, Lu Wen said, voice eerily calm. Then, I poured cooking oil on the sofa, the cabinets, and lit it all with a lighter. I'd gone mad. I didn't know what I was doing. Lu Wen downed her coffee in one gulp. She was recounting a painful past, but her eyes were dry, void of any tears. That fire, I didn't die, but... Lu Wen explained that the flames spread quickly. Xiaotsong, who had been sleeping in her room, heard the noise, panicked, and ran into the living room, freezing at the sight of the inferno. He wasn't even human, Lu Wen continued. He said if we were all going to die, we'd die together. He threw Xiaotsong next to the burning sofa. I managed to pull Xiaotsong to me, but her face... Eventually, the neighbors called the fire department, who broke down the door and put out the fire. We weren't fit to be parents. Those years with us brought nothing but suffering to Xiaotsong, and in the end, her face was scarred because of us. My father sold our home and used every penny he had to take Xiaotsong to Beijing for treatment. Before they left, he told me, "Whatever you do with your life, it has nothing to do with me now. But this child needs to live well. She cannot be sacrificed to your miserable life." Xiaofa thought of Xiaotsong's face, realizing that Lu Wen's father's efforts to seek medical help might not have gone smoothly. A year later, Xiaotsong's father died in a car accident after a drunken night out. With no close family left, Lu Wen wanted to go to Beijing to be with Xiaotsong, but her father refused. I wandered through life like a ghost for those years. If it weren't for meeting my current husband, I might have died drunk on some street corner, Lu Wen said, gazing out the window. By the BMW parked outside, a slightly overweight middle-aged man was peering in toward the cafe. A little over a year ago, Lu Wen's father was diagnosed with liver cancer. He passed away in less than 2 months. Before he died, he urged Lu Wen to take good care of Xiao Tsong. "You are atoning for your own sins," he said. Her father closed his eyes peacefully as Xiao Tsong knelt by his bedside, refusing to leave despite the nurses' and doctors' efforts. Although she had told her current husband about her past, bringing home a teenage daughter was hard for him to adjust to. Especially since Xiao Tsong's behavior had become odd, she roamed the villa barefoot late at night, refusing to sleep. Several times, Lu Wen's husband, arriving home from late work events, had nearly been frightened into a heart attack by Xiao Tsong. "Why not send her to a boarding school? I can arrange for her to have the best school, the best teachers," he suggested. "It would be best for her and for us. I'm getting old. I really can't handle this anymore." Lu Wen was reluctant. She'd just reunited with her daughter, and their relationship wasn't yet close. But her husband's words made sense, and every time Lu Wen looked at Xiao Tsong's face, she was reminded of her own shameful past. In the end, she agreed to her husband's suggestion and enrolled Xiao Tsong in an expensive private school in the suburbs. But peace didn't last long. Soon, the teachers began calling, complaining that Xiao Tsong was skipping class, smoking, getting into fights, and even staying out all night. They were at their wits' end, threatening expulsion if her behavior continued. So, after thinking it over, I decided to send her to Auntie Chi. She grew up there. They have a bond. Auntie Chi will surely take good care of her, Lu Wen said, pulling a card from her wallet and handing it to Xiaofa. "I know Auntie Chi won't take my money, but I can't think of anything else to give her. I'll transfer money into this card regularly as a small token of my gratitude," she added. Lu Wen stood to leave, and Xiaofa watched through the glass as the man spoke to Lu Wen. He gently touched her belly, and Xiaofa noticed the slight bump beneath Lu Wen's loose dress. After half a lifetime of wandering, had she finally found her happiness? Looking at the bank card on the table, Xiaofa thought of Xiao Tsong's taunting words in the taxi that day. "I have nothing, but I'm loaded." Was Auntie Chi's house really where Xiao Tsong belonged? Xiaofa's head throbbed as she realized she couldn't make sense of it all. Meeting Lu Wen was something Xiao Fa kept entirely from Aunt Chi. Xiao Tsong still refused to go to school, roaming around town daily with her messy, feather duster-like hair. After a few stern reprimands from Xiao Fa, she no longer hung out with the town delinquents. One step at a time, Xiao Fa told Aunt Chi, adding, "Once she lets her guard down, we can get her into a vocational school. Kids her age should be in school." Aunt Chi nodded. "You're right. I'll listen to you." Xiao Fa noticed Aunt Chi had lost weight and suggested she go to the hospital for a checkup. Aunt Chi, however, kept putting it off. Xiao Fa could easily handle street ruffians, but when it came to Aunt Chi, she always found herself at a loss. On her way back to the police station, Xiao Fa saw Xiao Tsong slip into an internet cafe. She followed her in quietly and saw Xiao Tsong seated in the farthest corner, eyes glued to the screen. Police, Xiao Fa flashed her badge at the cafe manager, requesting to monitor the computer Xiao Tsong was using for an investigation. Through the manager's computer, Xiao Fa saw Xiao Tsong wasn't playing games or chatting. She was browsing medical forums. Using her ID, Xiao Tsong had posted, "What causes an elderly person to cough up blood and lose weight rapidly?" Turns out, she was concerned about Aunt Chi's health. Xiao Fa couldn't help but feel a bit impressed by Xiao Tsong, realizing this seemingly rebellious girl actually had a caring side. And she was observant, picking up on Aunt Chi's health issues before anyone else. As Xiao Fa was feeling touched, she saw Xiao Tsong log onto a different website filled with missing persons posts from families. When she read Xiao Tsong's message, it clicked. She was searching for Aunt Chi's daughter, who had gone missing over a decade ago. After that day, Xiao Fa's attitude toward Xiao Tsong subtly shifted. Even her messy bird's nest hair started to look a bit endearing. "Officer Fa, are you falling for me or something? Why are you always giving me that mushy look?" Xiao Tsong said. shivering as she shook off her shoulders. Xiao Fei tried to link arms with her, only for Xiao Tsong to jerk away, running off as if she'd been pricked by a needle. Geez, I have no interest in old ladies like you. Brat, Xiao Fei laughed, unable to help herself. One night, Xiao Fei was startled awake by her phone ringing. Officer Fei, it's serious. Come over here fast. The village chief's grating voice screeched through the phone. After quickly arranging for Tang Tang to stay with the neighbors, Xiao Fei sped over to Aunt Chi's house, arriving at dawn. She saw a crowd gathered around the gate. Make way, don't disturb the scene, Xiao Fei called out. Inside, the house was in complete disarray, everything overturned, blankets thrown on the floor. In the corner, Aunt Chi lay on the ground, her lower back injured, blood staining her undershirt. Quick, get her help. Xiao Fei checked her breathing, faint but present. The paramedics accompanying her moved Aunt Chi to the ambulance. Where's Xiao Tsong? Xiao Fei scanned the room, finding no trace of her. The village chief looked puzzled, exchanging a glance with his wife. She was here a moment ago, clutching onto Aunt Chi and not letting go. She bit anyone who got close, like a guard dog. The village chief explained that around 2 or 3 in the morning, he'd been woken up by Xiao Tsong's screams. Assuming it was just more of her antics, he pulled the blanket over his head, trying to ignore it. But as he listened, he sensed something wrong, so he grabbed a flashlight and went outside to check. As he cracked open the gate, he saw 3 or 4 figures darting away on motorcycles toward the village entrance. Alarmed, he rushed to Aunt Chi's place and found the door wide open. Xiao Tsong was covered in blood, pressing down on Aunt Chi's wound as she shouted for help. The village chief called the police immediately. She's cursed, that one, muttered the chief's wife. She must have messed with some unsavory folks, and they came back to settle the score. Keep quiet, the village chief scolded her, then turned to Xiao Fei. Officer Fei, whatever the village needs to do to help, just say the word. Let's go home first, Xiao Fei replied, though she couldn't shake a nagging feeling about Xiao Tsong's absence. Although Aunt Chi's injuries weren't life-threatening, the doctors diagnosed her with late-stage lung cancer. The doctor remarked, "It's rare for someone in this condition to hold on so long." Will Grandma Chi die? Tang Tang gently touched Aunt Chi's face, her small hand comforting. No, she won't die. Xiao Fei took a few days off work to care for Aunt Chi in the hospital. Xiao Tsong, along with the young men who'd attacked Aunt Chi, had already been apprehended. According to the investigating officer, had they arrived any later, Xiao Tsong might have seriously injured someone. They found her in an abandoned factory on the outskirts of town, fiercely fighting with the 4 youths. When the police arrived, she was straddling a young man, holding a sharp metal rod poised to stab him in the chest. That girl is fierce, said one of the officers who witnessed it, visibly shaken. If we hadn't pulled her off in time, that rod would have gone straight into the guy's chest. In the detention center, Xiaofa saw Xiao Tsong, her hair now cut short, almost boyish in style. Without the cover of long hair, the scar on her face was starkly visible, though not as intimidating as it had once seemed. Xiao Tsong wore a plain gray outfit, her eyes lowered. When Xiaofa told her that Aunt Chi was out of danger, she visibly relaxed. Xiaofa asked, "Why?" "Those bastards. 1,000 deaths wouldn't be enough for them." "No, I mean, why did you care so much about Aunt Chi's life? You always ignored her, called her a meddling old lady." "Because she's my grandmother." Xiao Tsong's eyes brimmed with tears, and Xiaofa looked at her, puzzled yet earnest. It was the first time Xiaofa had seen Xiao Tsong cry. Her tears flowed freely, landing on her hand, covering the dark tattoo on her wrist. When she first arrived at Aunt Chi's house, Xiao Tsong felt out of place. The outhouse was outside. There was no computer, no Wi-Fi. The bed was as hard as stone, and the room had a persistent musty smell. But strangely enough, over time, Xiao Tsong started to feel something for the place. She'd fall asleep scrolling through her phone, only to wake up under a blanket she didn't remember pulling over herself, smelling faintly of detergent, clean and fresh. She'd sit at the gate, spacing out, sometimes staring down a rooster perched on a tree branch, and somehow, a bowl of freshly peeled pomegranates would appear beside her. One night, she was startled awake by squeaking sounds and, suspecting a rat, began searching for it. In a box near her bedside, she stumbled upon a pile of old toys, worn and familiar. Do you think memories start at birth? I feel like mine do. I remember the first person I saw was my grandma. I don't understand. She's always been so good to me. Why did she send me away? I'm always unwanted. No one ever really wants me. Grandpa used to take me for burn treatments. He'd always say, "What are you going to do, child?"
Who would want you?
Yeah, who would want to live with someone like me, to love me? No one would. Even I hate myself sometimes. Xiao Tsong rested her chin in her hands. Despite her own denial, Xiao Tsong had developed feelings for Aunt Chi over time, though she never expressed them. No one had ever taught her how to love, so she didn't know how. She simply protected Aunt Chi out of instinct. She'd caused trouble, and every time Luan called, trying to persuade her to be more peaceful, she'd just ask for money. Xiao Tsong knew Aunt Chi didn't have money. She never thought much of it herself, but she knew money could buy Aunt Chi a bigger house, a softer bed. When the villagers mentioned Aunt Chi's missing daughter, Xiao Tsong started posting online, asking for help. She even rallied a few idle youths in town, offering a generous reward for any clues about the past. But her showy spending didn't go unnoticed, and a few young men looking for quick cash took an interest. They plotted to kidnap Xiao Tsong, hoping to blackmail her parents. They hadn't expected that frail old lady to fight for her like that. They were after money, not blood, but things went sideways, and they fled after injuring her. What they hadn't anticipated was Xiao Tsong tracking them down to an abandoned factory where they'd previously met her a few times. When Xiao Tsong followed the trail, the group saw an opportunity to capture her and lie low in the mountains. But she fought like a wild beast, and they were shaken. If the police hadn't arrived when they did, those guys would have been in serious trouble. Did I do something wrong? Xiao Tsong asked, lost in thought. Xiaofa didn't know how to respond, so she reached out to Lu Wen and explained the situation. Within days, Lu Wen's wealthy husband pulled some strings to get Xiao Tsong out. As Aunt Chi gradually recovered, she learned that Lu Wen had taken Xiao Tsong away, but said nothing. When Xiaofa went to return Lu Wen's bank card, Aunt Chi pulled out a small red pouch from her chest and asked Xiaofa to give it to Lu Wen as well. What's this? Lu Wen opened the red pouch to find an old note and a lock of hair. Is this? This is Xiao Tsong's birth details and a lock of her hair. Xiaofa pointed to her chest. Aunt Chi kept it close to her heart all these years. Every year on Xiao Tsong's birthday, she would make a bowl of chive and egg dumplings, year after year. The dumplings Aunt Chi's daughter never returned to eat, she continued to make every year. Because one year someone would come back to eat them. The doctor said Aunt Chi only has a few days left. I won't say anything else. Just, can you let Xiao Tsong come back to accompany her for the end? For the end, Lu Wen held the lock of hair, looking helplessly at Xiaofa. But Xiao Tsong has already been sent abroad. My husband said it's for her own good, that overseas education and management are the best. Your husband. What about what you think? Xiao Tsong is your daughter. She's a person, not an object. Are you pushing her away like this because you love her? Xiaofa's lips were white with anger. You've given her everything else, but what about love? Did you ever think to be with her at night when she was scared to sleep alone? Or call her when she was bullied in boarding school? Why didn't you ever reach out? At the detention center, Xiao Tsong had talked about living with Lu Wen during those years. To me, my mom felt fake, like a mannequin in a store window. I could only look from a distance, afraid to get close. She never told me stories or tucked me in at night. Sometimes she'd look at me as if she didn't even remember who I was, like I didn't even exist to her. As Lu Wen tried to explain, Xiaofa stormed out, slamming the door. She didn't want to see her again. 15 years later. During the Qingming festival, the rain fell continuously. Comrade Fa, you're here. The village chief, having just returned from visiting a grave, was squatting by his gate, brushing the yellow mud off his shoes. Xiaofa and Tangting got out of the car, and Tangting dashed into Aunt Qi's yard, calling out cheerfully, "Grandma Qi, my mom and I came to visit you." The village chief chuckled with admiration. "Tangdang is growing up to be so beautiful, just like you. Comrade Fa, you've raised her well, not like my two boys, who give me constant worries." Xiaofa replied, "Each generation has its own blessings." Yes, that's true. The village chief laughed, his eyes disappearing into a smile. Over the years, he had taken it upon himself to maintain Aunt Qi's house. Otherwise, the old place, long uninhabited, would have collapsed by now. Aunt Qi was buried beneath a red-fruited tree in her yard. Each time Xiaofa visited the village, she would go in, spend a quiet moment at the tree, and talk to Aunt Qi. "Mom, look at this." Xiaofa walked into the yard, and Tangding picked up a voice recorder from under the red-fruited tree. Xiaofa pressed the play button, and Aunt Qi's voice came through, singing, "Rock, rock, rock, the little boat rocks to Grandma's bridge. Grandma is good. Grandma is kind. Grandma smiles sweetly at me." Xiaofa's heart pounded. Who could have recorded this? And who left it here? She suspected only one person. Could it be Sister Xiaozong came back? Tangding asked, searching around the house. Back then, when Aunt Qi was in the hospital, Xiaofa and Tangding stayed by her bedside. Tangding had tried to hold back her tears, saying, "Grandma Qi, don't die. Don't leave us. I'm going to find Zhao Dai. She's waiting for me." Aunt Qi sighed deeply. "And to you." Xiaofa hadn't expected her to say this. All these years, Xiaofa had spent much effort looking into Aunt Qi's daughter's whereabouts. Although deep down she feared the worst, without finding a body, she stubbornly held onto a sliver of hope. Aunt Qi closed her eyes. If Zhao Dai were alive, she wouldn't stay away. She wouldn't. Just then, there was a knock on the hospital room door, and Luan entered hesitantly, glancing at Xiaofa nervously. She knelt beside Aunt Qi's bed. "Mom, I came to see you. I'm sorry I've wronged you." "Zhao Dai, don't cry." Aunt Qi tried to lift her hand to wipe Luan's tears, but could only move her fingers slightly. "Live well. Live a good life." "Mom, look who I brought." Luan called someone in, and a woman entered holding a baby. Luan placed the chubby baby into Aunt Qi's frail arms. "Mom, this is your grandson. Look at him." Aunt Qi turned her head to face the little one. The baby cooed, waving his tiny hands and feet, and grasped her trembling fingers tightly. "Mom, he knows you. He knows you're his grandma." Luan choked with tears. She took out her phone and started a video call, saying, "Mom, there's someone else who wants to see you." On the screen, Xiaozong appeared, looking bright and fresh, dressed in the outfit Aunt Qi and Xiaofa had bought for her on her birthday at the county's department store. "Grandma, the clothes are a bit tight." "I'm taller now," Xiaozong laughed. "Oh, bring them here. I'll alter them for you. A little sewing will make them fit." "Grandma, wait for me to come back. I still want to eat your chive and egg dumplings." Xiaozong was smiling, but her face gradually faltered, and she turned her head to stifle her tears before continuing, "Grandma, I'll be back very soon. Just wait for me. Please wait for me, okay?" Yes, of course," Aunt Qi said with a peaceful smile. Luan held Aunt Qi's hand, slowly stroking the image of Xiaozong on the screen. Aunt Qi's hand slipped from Luan's grasp and hung limply off the edge of the bed. "Grandma, are you asleep?" Xiaozong hummed a lullaby. "Let me sing for you, Grandma. Don't laugh at me. You have to say I sing well." "Mom, but has Sister Xiaozong returned or not?" Tangdang interrupted Xiaofa's thoughts. "Stop looking. She's not here." "Not here? Then where did she go?" "No matter where she is, she knows there's always a home for her here." Tangdang looked puzzled. "So, did she come back or not?" "Yes, she came back. With Grandma here, How could she not come back? Xiaofa placed the recorder under the tree. Aunt Chi's voice drifted softly from it. Rock, 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 the little boat rocks to Grandma's bridge. Grandma is good. Grandma is kind. Grandma smiles sweetly at me. Rock, 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 the little boat rocks to Grandma's bridge. Grandma says, good baby, Grandma gives me a little cake. Rock, 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 the little boat rocks to Grandma's bridge. Grandma says, good baby, Grandma gives me a little cake. At the song's end, Aunt Chi's voice came through. Asleep yet? Shout Song, have you fallen asleep? Footsteps followed, accompanied by the sound of a door closing, leaving a profound silence. A few seconds later, a shy, tender voice said, Grandma, I love you.